Charlie Kirk assassinated. What it means for America and the world. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a story that has shaken America and grabbed the world's attention. The sudden and shocking death of Charlie Kirk. We are going to cover who he was, how his life ended, his family, why so many people either loved or hated him, and what this moment really says about America right now, and drop a comment if you've got thoughts or your own perspective on what's happening in the world. Your comments really help this community grow. Charlie Kirk wasn't just another political commentator. He was the founder of Turning Point USA, an organization aimed at rallying young Americans around conservative values. He started young, barely out of high school, when he began building the organization, and quickly turned it into one of the loudest youth-driven political voices in America. For his followers, he was a fearless defender of conservative values. For his critics, he was a lightning rod, someone who thrived on stirring controversy and confronting those who disagreed with him. Either way, you couldn't ignore him. On that tragic day, Charlie was at a public event in Utah, speaking to a crowd as part of his National American Comeback Tour. These events were his way of reaching people face-to-face, challenging ideas, and energizing his audience. 20 minutes in, while under a tent, he was answering a question from a student about gun violence in America. Then came the unthinkable. A gunshot rang out. In an instant, the event spiraled into chaos. Charlie was struck in the neck, blood visible, as he collapsed to the ground. People screamed, scrambled for safety, some ducked under chairs, others ran. The energy that had been buzzing with debate moments before turned to shock and panic. He was rushed to the hospital but later pronounced dead. He was just 31 years old. His wife Erica and their 2 young children are now left behind to deal with this unimaginable loss. For them, this isn't just a headline. It's the sudden tearing away of a husband, a father, a partner in life. Why did so many people love him? Well, for a start, Charlie Kirk had charisma. He wasn't the type to shy away from controversy. In fact, he leaned into it. For people who felt their voices weren't being heard in modern America, Charlie was the megaphone. He stood up for what he believed, even if it made him unpopular in other circles. He spoke about religion, patriotism, the importance of conservative values, and he made young people feel like they had a place in politics. For his supporters, he wasn't just a speaker. He was a symbol of resistance to what they saw as a culture that was becoming too progressive, too restrictive of their freedoms. And let's be honest, he also had enemies. His outspoken nature meant he clashed with people constantly. He was the kind of guy who could spark a firestorm on social media with just one tweet. Some saw him as fearless, others saw him as reckless. But love him or hate him, you couldn't deny that he had influence. He was building something, and now suddenly it's been cut short. The aftermath of his death has been just as chaotic as the event itself. America is split down the middle in how it's reacting. On one side, his supporters are calling this a political assassination, proof that free speech is under attack. Leaders on the conservative side are framing him as a martyr, someone who died for his beliefs. They are pointing to this as a warning of what happens when political divisions are allowed to boil over unchecked. On the other side, there are voices urging caution. People are asking for facts, reminding everyone not to jump to conclusions. Others are using the moment to raise bigger questions. How safe are public political events? Is the rhetoric in America becoming too toxic, too dangerous? Some critics are also pointing out that Charlie himself used strong, sometimes incendiary language, and that the culture of political hostility in America is a two-way street. That's not to blame the victim, but it highlights how tense and volatile things have become. Here's the thing. This isn't just about one man. Charlie Kirk's death is a mirror being held up to America. It shows us how far the nation has drifted into division and hostility. It shows how words can spill over into violence. And it forces people to ask, is this the path America wants to keep going down? Let's zoom out for a moment and think about what this means beyond the US. For us in Aussie land, this might feel like just another headline from across the Pacific. But there are lessons here. Australia, while more laid back in its politics, still has divisions. We still have heated debates, sometimes nasty rhetoric online, and we are not immune to the kind of polarization that America is dealing with. Seeing what happened to Charlie Kirk should make us ask, how do we keep our political conversations passionate but not deadly? How do we protect free speech while also ensuring safety? One major issue this tragedy highlights is security at public events. In the past, political figures would mingle with the crowd, shake hands, take questions. But in today's climate, it's becoming increasingly risky. The question is, how much should security tighten before public debate becomes inaccessible? If leaders wall themselves off completely, do we lose something important about democracy? But if they stay open, do they risk becoming targets? That balance is now under the spotlight like never before. Another key point is media and social media. The shooting was filmed, shared, and spread online almost instantly. People didn't just read about it in the news, they saw it raw and unfiltered on their phones. And that raises all sorts of questions. Should graphic footage of someone's death be circulating like that? What does it do to viewers, especially younger ones? Does it inform or does it sensationalize? And how should platforms handle it responsibly? The line between reporting and exploitation has never been thinner. And then there's the bigger, almost philosophical question: what role does rhetoric play? When political leaders use extreme language, demonize opponents, and treat politics like war, does it create an environment where violence becomes thinkable? You can argue that words don't kill, but they can create the conditions where someone decides to act. And that's why people around the world are paying attention to this story. It isn't just about Charlie Kirk. It's about what his death represents in a society on edge. For his supporters, Charlie Kirk will be remembered as someone who stood firm, someone who never backed down, someone who inspired young conservatives to get involved in shaping their country. For his critics, his legacy is more complicated. They see someone who added fuel to the fire of division. But either way, his impact is undeniable, and his sudden death ensures that his name will remain part of the larger story of America's political climate. So where does this leave America? Some say this is a wake-up call, that leaders and citizens alike need to step back from the edge, cool the rhetoric, and find ways to disagree without dehumanizing one another. Others believe this is proof that the battle is only intensifying and that the divisions will only deepen from here. Whichever side you lean towards, one thing is clear: America has reached a crossroads. The choices made in the coming months will shape not just politics but the culture itself. And for those of us watching from afar, there's a lesson too. It's easy to roll our eyes at the chaos in the US, but we should never think it couldn't happen here. Polarization, unchecked rhetoric, the spread of misinformation, these are not uniquely American problems. They are global. And what happens in America has ripple effects everywhere. So, that's the story of Charlie Kirk's death, a personal tragedy, a national crisis, and a global warning. His life was cut short, his family devastated, his movement left without its leader. But the bigger story is about where America goes from here, and what the rest of us can learn from it. Before we wrap up, let me say this: stories like this aren't easy. They are raw, they are emotional, and they leave us with more questions than answers. But they are important, because they force us to reflect on where we are headed as societies. So if you've got thoughts, whether you're in Australia, the US, or anywhere else, drop a comment. Do you think political speech has gone too far? Do you think events like this could happen more often? Or do you think there's still hope for pulling back from the edge? And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss future videos where we break down stories that matter not just for one country but for all of us.